Sup,
All
sup,
right,
gang?
we are here. I think we didn't get it ready to go fast enough because once again Jeff isn't he's not in charge.
Yeah, you're missing the
But we're
wizard.
but we're here. So
We here. Yeah,
um
yeah.
so we'll give it a couple minutes for people to hop on. If they're gonna
Oh,
hop on.
can you see if there's people on?
Yeah. We got
Okay.
uh,
You're right.
11 people thus far. We're killing it. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
All right. So listen, you said that there were a couple of people
We,
last night said that it was a little philosophical.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
with your like talk on like the class, what's my truth, and how you were talking about freedom, and I was listening to the book, that story that you were telling one of the
Uh,
students that you gave the last book to him.
oh, Peace
Um,
Pilgrim?
Peace program. Yeah. All she had was a toothbrush and a comb.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. In a
And
smock, in a little smock. Yeah.
and wait, what's a smock?
A smock is like a kind of like an apron of sorts. Yeah, that you would wear. Yeah.
So a smock, a comb, and a toothbrush.
Yeah.
And
Well, the important thing is a smock always has these pockets in the front. And so she kept her comb and her toothbrush in the front pocket of her smock.
okay. So she needed a place to store it. That's why it was important.
Yeah.
She needed
Yeah, it's a thing,
she
man.
had
It's
no
hard when you
bag.
have nothing. It's hard when you got to carry around a comb and a toothbrush.
Can't put it behind your ear, I guess. No,
Yeah.
but like yeah, so during the info session, one of the students was like, "Yeah, the class just seemed very like up in the air, like kind of like drifting with the wind, like it's like is that's what they said, like described it as like very
Oh yeah.
philosophical." And he was like, "Oh, I get it, Sam, that like you're saying that there's no like all these decisions that we're making, and as when we're looking for money, when we're controlled by money, we have more decisions to make, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we have more power, but then you still have you're kind of controlled. You have less freedom because of all the responsibility. I think that's what you were
Yeah.
saying. But anyway, they were like, I mean, it's very meta. He was saying it's very meta to be like,
Oh my God. That's so
it was,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I just thought it was funny. But I get the point that you were trying to make,
Yeah.
um,
Meta
just
would
between
be
true,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
oh, just the difference between true freedom, where like kind of
Yeah.
how the peace program, all she could go this way or that way, but she decided to go the other way, and she just wakes up and there's nothing like holding her to something.
Yeah.
She can just
Yeah, that's right.
go in
Yeah,
that
that's right.
direction. But you're
Yeah.
saying money, you're controlled. If that's you're gonna have less freedom, even though it's like a paradox. You have more freedom, but you have less freedom in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was yeah. They were just talking to me about class during the info session. So
And in a way, wow, once again I'm very dang it. I don't know what's going on that I'm looking at the stream over here on my right side and I'm in my face if I move at all my face is very blurry so I have to sit very still.
yeah, I'm
Hmm.
not sure. I've seen it once so far, but
Okay, well,
mhm,
we just got to bring Jeff in, got to bring him back in action, have him fix a few things up here.
mhm,
But in any case, I felt like, I don't know, I get to the end of a semester and sometimes there are a few things I just want to ask students. I just want to just offer the opportunity to just ask some questions like that to students and let people hear what it is that people are saying, the students are
mhm,
saying,
mhm,
um, and not dig too far into the to I don't know, like a substantive or like the sociology of it, right? Although
mhm,
I
mhm.
suppose it got very sociological.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Sometimes I just have to do that. It's like a break for me. I need to just take a break.
Yeah, yeah.
It's too much, man. To plan these classes out like this, just week after week after week. It just
Hmm.
yeah. It's really. I wouldn't say it's a burden, but it is a burden.
Hmm.
It's a
Well,
lot. Yeah.
oh, I can imagine. Are you serious? I can totally imagine that. And
Mm.
but I think like for this one, I personally thought it was great. And I feel like students probably got a lot out of it.
Mm.
Um, just to be in that like creative, like thoughtful space. Uh,
Mm.
all of your classes are thoughtful, but you know, like you're saying, it was just a little bit different. It
Mm.
for
Well, I would say I had more students after class wanting to talk and wanting to kind of engage at different levels,
Mhm.
and wanting to say what their truth was or what they thought about other people's truths and that kind of stuff more than
Yeah.
I typically have. And part
Mhm.
of that is we're in the last week, right? So there's this thing called doorknobbing that psychologists, therapists see it, doorknobbing.
What is
And
that?
it's when, people wait until the last minute to say something. So you'll go into therapy and you'll spend 49 minutes in therapy saying like, hey, everything's great,
Life's.
blah blah blah, this and that, also
Mhm.
so on and so forth, and then you're on your way out the room and you got your hand on the door and you turn around to the therapist and hey, by the way, did I tell you I tried to drive my car off a bridge last Wednesday? It's like, nah,
Right.
you forgot about that. With your hands on the doorknob, so I see that a lot in a semester. Students, they wait till the very end to do a lot of
Mhm.
things. One, to try to make up the work that they haven't been doing all semester. That's pretty
Mhm.
common. But the
Mhm.
other one
Mhm.
is to, say like, oh my God, I really, really, really want to volunteer. And I didn't sign up. And now, when we're in week 14 and I say, well, you didn't sign up, man. How come you didn't sign up? I don't know. I'm just kind of afraid. I'm like, well, it's not going to happen now, so,
Yeah, yeah.
so
It's
that kind of
like
thing.
they finally got the confidence, or whatever it is. If it's I wonder how they get the confidence like towards the end. Like how does doorknobbing happen? Like why
Yeah.
does it get to
Well,
that point?
it's really getting the courage, and it's really, it's a panic moment. You sort of panic
Mhm.
and you have to make sure it happens
Mhm.
somehow.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty, um, yeah.
Yeah.
Doorknobbing. Right at the end of Eric Sell knows all about doorknobbing, man. Yeah, yeah. The resistance. Yeah. But yeah, Eric, given what you did, I mean, because it's the most difficult things for people are when we're really dealing with things that are very difficult, right, to talk about, then you're afraid, but in the end you got to make it happen, you know
Mhm.
um,
Mhm. Maybe there's
so
something about this class that felt more approachable.
yeah, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps. I think that people are thinking about it, right? Like they're, students, young people, uh, and again, this is the purpose of the whole class, right? To show the
Mhm.
world that students are actually really very, very thoughtful.
Mhm.
Um, most of them, most of the time, they're here in nothing has changed. They're here in college. The very clear majority of them are taking their studies seriously and they're trying to do the best they can. I mean, people are struggling here and there with and trying to balance study versus party and working and all those kinds of things. And some students
Mhm.
are not here to really grow. They're here to get a job and that's it, right?
Mhm.
But it's really no different from when I was in school, and so that's the purpose of this whole class and streaming it and so on. An unintended purpose anyway is to really show people that, hey, this is people are really thoughtful, man. So they want to think about truth. What's my truth? You know?
Yeah, I think these are conversations that a lot of people are having. Like it, and students, like when they're, yeah, I totally see that. They're like having these conversations and you bring it up, right? And then they're like, oh, here's a moment where I can like explore this. Maybe not
Yeah.
truth exactly, but somewhere in that realm. It just seems like very popular thing to like think about in these. It's like
Yeah.
a very existential question. So I just feel
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
But it's also a very practical question, right? Because,
mhm.
um, and I took the opportunity to just push back. I knew I would probably push back against each person just for the fun of it. I mean, that's my job, right?
Right.
So if
Yeah.
you're whatever you say, I'm gonna see if I can move you in a different direction. But then
Mhm.
at the same time, yeah, whatever. That's what I
Wa-
do. So
Was there, I'm not sure if there was a particular moment where someone said something, and do you have a memory of like a specific challenge or a truth that someone said that was like interesting for you? It's okay if not. I'm just curious if there was.
no, they were all really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all very, very interesting. I don't remember
Mhm.
what the first woman said, uh,
Mhm.
but yeah,
There's
they're all yeah. No, they're
there's
all
a
really.
there's a comment that someone said from the YouTube
Hmm.
comments. His name was Nate796, and he said, "Peace Pilgrim is free in the sense of pure absence. My thoughts are, though,
Mm,
there is no real freedom, only partial."
yeah,
I wish I could
yeah,
bring
I
that
would
up.
agree with that. I mean,
Hmm.
you're not. Nobody's free. Look, freedom is this illusory thing, right? That we're trying to. Yeah, it's a thing we talk about. I mean, it's a big part of the human condition, right? For
Hmm.
forever, when human beings first started making tools,
Hmm.
the goal of tools and technology is to replace our bodies in a way. I mean, that's what it is, right? And that's what technology is. It's just everything, right? It's just make it just it's a different functionality of our bodies. So like a crane, right? Like the crane it's just replacing our hands, right? The crane can take my hand you know, can pick up my water bottle, but
Hmm.
the crane can pick up a 2,000-pound boulder or something. It's the same thing. If I could pick it up with my hand, the 2,000-pound whatever it is, I wouldn't need the crane. But everything, man, everything, all technology is just replacing our bodies. And so, since human beings first started making tools to make technology, so to speak, right? We've been struggling with this question of freedom, right? The freedom to free ourselves from the constraints of our bodies and then constraints of our minds. And then ultimately the constraints of the sociological laws and forces that restrict or that shape human social conduct in ways that maybe is not the way we want to shape it, as
Hmm.
that maybe is not the best possible way. So, like leadership, how do you have leadership in your communities? If you're a hunting and gathering society, how do you have the best possible leadership that will lead to the greatest likelihood of survivability of your small group? I mean, there are social factors that are going to come into play that allow you to pick the leader and the best possible leader, and there are things that are going to work against you, against doing that. And those are the sociological laws, right? So we're
Hmm.
battling that, free ourselves from those constricting laws. So
Hmm.
freedom is just woven into the human condition at every
Hmm.
level.
When you say we're battling that,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Well,
how.
we're battling. We're trying to maximize our ability to go beyond our bodies and beyond our minds, to free ourselves. AI is an attempt to go beyond our minds, right? So, you have one mind, but AI put a computer put on the task and and Excel. in a computer, you can do so much more, right? So now you have AI, and suddenly instead of 1 computer, you have 10. Instead of 10, it's 100. Instead of 100, it's 100,000 or a million. And so
Mm.
AI is simply trying to take us beyond the constraints of the human mind. But yet
Mhm.
at the same time, we create the conditions in which, the what was supposed to be enhanced freedom will be, could be very easily decreased freedom and greater constraint.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. How do you
you
see
know,
that?
well, like
That
when
it
the
could be.
robots take over, when the computers take over, or when like we can't figure out how to have AI
Mhm.
and build an economy. Man, I'm looking at the stream. I can't believe my face gets so. I'm gonna have to fix this. I gotta really work, Jeff. I'm assuming my audio is coming through okay. It's just my.
Mhm.
I have to be really, really still.
You still
Um,
look fresh though.
no, I do here. That's because you're looking at it here. You have to look at it on the stream. Okay, listen. So, AI. Wait, what was I gonna
Yeah, yeah,
say?
so you were saying machines taking over, and how AI
Oh
is
yeah, I got it.
can create so
Yeah.
much
So
restraint. Uh,
yeah, we've spent 7,500 years of kind of modern society, right? Organized
mhm.
society. It's about
Yeah.
7,500 years more or less, right?
Okay.
We've built up. We've taken that much time to really build these societies around production and consumption, and
Mhm.
kind of figure it out. And things have changed pretty radically since the onset of industrialization. I mean, many things have changed very
Mhm.
quickly.
Mhm.
But AI is going to make it change really fast. And so, there's a balance between, you've built a society, you have a certain number of people who are doing certain types of jobs, they earn a certain amount of money, with that money, they're able to, or income. I mean, now we've built up to an income economy, right? So they exchange their labor for money, and they exchange the money for resources and
What was it
labor of other
before?
people.
What was it before an income economy?
Well, when you don't have income, you're kind of just you're living off what you can produce and what you can trade with other people.
Oh,
It's
so like
kind of
more
very
like
simple.
agrarian and
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of
like bartering.
agrarian. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So now with AI, what we've done is we're really turning things on its head very, very quickly, man. And we may not be able to restructure the sociological boundaries of human social life, so that all the jobs that are going to be changed, so many things are going to change so
So
rapidly.
one of those boundaries being jobs.
Yeah, jobs and professions, and how AI gets integrated into things. And we have to pretty quickly uh figure it out, right? This guy Jeremy Rifkin years ago wrote this book called The End of Work, and I met Jeremy Rifkin. Actually, it was pretty cool. I used The End of Work when I taught social change back in the maybe 1996 or something. And but I met him in Paris when I was there doing that for that gathering for the nation of South Korea
Hmm,
for
okay.
the and
Yeah.
he wrote this book called The End of Work, and basically he postulated that we're gonna, with technology and machines, we're gonna get to the place where people are not working. I mean, we're gonna see just job after job after job, professions just go away. And
Right.
what I said to him was, listen, man, I still think that was one of the most brilliant books. He was completely wrong, right? I mean, he just he missed it.
Oh, he
Uh,
did? Because
yeah,
I
because
was assuming we weren't there yet.
no, because this was in the early '90s, and he was predicting it was going to happen in like 15 years or so, maybe
Oh,
20
okay,
years.
okay.
So,
So he's
uh,
correct in a way, but just not. It's not coming as soon as he
first,
thought.
brilliantly argued, man. Really, such a cool sociological book. He's just a really brilliant guy, really, really cool guy, really
Jeremy
nice, very
Rifkin.
humble, very, very nice. He's in his early 80s now.
Oh wow.
Uh, but what I said to him was, that was one of the most awesome books I've ever I've ever read. I ever assigned my class. I told my students this is one of the most brilliant books you'll ever read.
Wow, did you
But
have them read it?
yeah, my students read it back in the day, right? But I
That's
said to
dope.
him, I said, but you were wrong, right? But you were right. AI is going to show that you actually were on point. You just missed your years up, you know?
Right.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, so that's
What
the
did he?
thing that this is all about freedom, right? We free ourselves from work, but you free yourselves, but you can throw the entire economy into turmoil. Yeah, as a result.
Is that related to? Have you heard about those conspiracies where like corporations are I forget what it is. It's like yeah, you're not gonna have to work anymore. You're always gonna be happy. You'll have all the resources. You don't need to own
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything.
Well, this
Um,
is like the dystopian world that people have been postulating since the late probably 1900s, really.
okay.
That's kind of what it is, right? Of course, it's
Hmm.
not going to happen in a
They think
very
by like
clear way.
2050 or something, or like
Well,
by.
yeah, I think it's hard to put. Look, it's where first off, there are still going to be the legions of people who do not benefit from this kind of thing, right? And as we really see now, we've been seeing. So it's pretty it's it's absolutely fascinating.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Do you think? Do you think it would negatively impact everybody around the world, or like certain countries more than others? Like, for example, it made me think about Korea and how if there's big Walmarts, they'll shut down the Walmarts for the weekend, so the
Yeah,
smaller businesses will thrive. Like, do
yeah,
you
yeah,
think
yeah.
other countries would adjust to this type of technology versus like America? Like, how are you? What do you
Here,
think?
here it will destroy us because we do not see ourselves. We have a very weak communitarian fabric here, and so
Hmm.
we don't see ourselves as a singular nation. And this is where the conservatives started going back to, kind of Ronald Reagan. We're really making very important points. Unfortunately, too often they've wrapped themselves in religion and the flag and some kind, U.S. Like America first kind of thing,
Hmm.
and they kind of miss it. And for me, from my perspective, I think that takes us off. But this is where they're right is that you got to see us as a nation, as a singular nation, and so that people, when they're acting, are acting on behalf of themselves, but also acting on behalf of community members who they don't see, not just
Hmm.
their neighbor next door, but actually the person on the other side of the tracks, or the person in the next town, or the person wherever it is. And you have to have that because when things blow up, as they're going to start to blow up with AI, the transformation happens very quickly. You've got to have people have got to be willing to work together and figure out how we're going to implement all of this for the betterment of all people. And we're so incredibly divided, and the individualist sort of sentiment, moral kind of sense of moral ordering, it's so strong that it just keeps us divided. Whereas in a smaller country like Korea, or there are many other countries that are smaller.
Hmm.
The Khaliji nations in the Gulf, Middle East, or Scandinavia, this kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
people have a can more act on for the greater good. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's just so important. I'm saying it all the time, but it's so true. Uh, I don't know how. I don't know how to push that. You know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you say blow, like when it starts to blow up, there's just, would you say it's just like the divide of like classism would get even larger, or like the
Yeah.
gaps
Be
of
one.
poor
Yeah.
to the rich will be even
Yeah.
larger?
Yeah. Well, that would be one, right? So one of the things that I was going to show in class, and I didn't show it, but I showed like the S&P uh,
The S&P.
average, right? The Standard and Poor's uh,
Say that one more time.
index, the Standard and Poor's stock index, right?
Okay.
So I showed that going back to the kind of the mid 90s and how the line just goes up. I wish if Jeff were here and we could do it, I would bring it up on the
Pull it
screen
up.
and show it, but I
Yeah.
can't, man. It's just too. I don't know how to. Wait, hang on. No, I can do it. Hold on. Let me see if I
We
can.
miss you, Jeff. If you're
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. No, wait, hang on. I got it. I'm gonna figure it out. I got it right. I got it here.
Let's go.
And
Yeah.
oh, here we go. I'm gonna make
Okay.
this happen.
OG.
Share. Okay, hang on. Okay, share. Hang on. Background. Ah, shoot. Hold tight. Hold tight.
Quick side thought, I think maybe you should, for the intro, for the intro music, you should play the drums, and I can put a little I can rap a little beat over it, or rap a little
All right. All right. All right.
over
Let's
the
do
drums.
that.
We got to make our own little intro. So look out for that, guys.
Man, this is gonna be a shoot. Come on.
Someone said, "Come on, Sam, you're a big boy now."
Yeah. Oh God, I can't. Oh, come on, man. I can do it. I can do it, but it's just gonna be okay. Hang on, I'm gonna do the whole screen.
Yeah, you got this.
All right.
hmm
Oh wait, hang on. Ah. Okay, wait. That's not my screen.
I feel like Jeff is turning into like the
No.
Jamie of Joe Rogan. Like the Joe Rogan and Jamie kind of duo.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
All right, here we go. All right, there you go. You got it. All right, so
Got
here.
you.
Whoa, hang on. I got to do this one here. So here's Standard and Poor's, right? Just look at just how it goes up. It just keeps going up. Here's Trump. Okay.
And what is this representing?
Wait. Can you see my cursor on there?
No, unfortunately, no.
Wait, can you see it here?
Oh, yeah, we can see it. We can see that.
Okay, these are the Trump years. See, everyone says, "Oh, the Trump years are so great," and then it dips down under COVID, and then look here, it goes up again. I mean, this is Biden. They were killing it. I mean, we're just like we're rocking and rolling. And then it goes down, and then we're now back up. I mean, nothing has really changed.
And this is representing the stock market?
Yeah. It's an index, right? It's a Standard and Poor's 500 index, 500 top like companies they've selected out, right?
And so with Trump and Biden, it looks like it went up and at times went down.
Yeah. Look here. It's started in 2012, right? It's just going up. I mean, the nature of the market is just going up and up and up constantly. Okay. So here, take a look at this. This is distribution of household wealth, and so here we are in 1989. This is around the time that I'm right down in here is when I start at Penn State.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Now here, this is the top 0.1%, the green right here.
Top
So you can see my
0.1%
curve,
of
right?
the nation or of the world?
Top 1%. This is the United States. The richest
The United States.
0.1% of the U.S. Okay, this is them.
Right.
In this
Wow.
light green color.
Yeah.
The richest 1% is this green color and this green color. Okay, so this is the percentage of total household wealth that they have. Now this is going
Right.
to equal 100% up here, right? So the richest 0.1% of Americans control 14% of the household wealth. The richest 1% controls, what is this? Basically 30%. Okay,
Right.
a little over 30%. And then we go with the top 10%. We add that in. So now this is everything from here on up to here. Well, hang on. Right? So from here, this line, all the way up to here. That's how much the richest 10% of the U.S. owns. And then we go to this next 40%. But look at the bottom 50%. This is how much wealth they have. Look at here. This is what it is. See it over here? And then it went down. And now it's gone up a tiny bit, a fraction, 2.6%. It really hasn't changed hardly at all. Okay?
Oh my
so now come back here.
goodness.
Look at the index. Look, this is the market. This is the stock market. Look at it, has just grown crazy, right? Over the year. And if I go back before 2012, back to 1989, we're going to see the same thing. So look at how, even though the market is going crazy gangbusters, right? And everybody's getting rich, but the wealth is going into the hands of a fairly small number of people. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, Ricard, I can find one that would have the rest of the world. Yeah. But so the
That'd be cool.
idea is, and the rest of the world is even more so, right? So the idea is like the mark that when you talk about, hang on. So when we talk about people benefiting and not benefiting, wait, don't say, we don't want to say, from the changes that are taking place. Well, the market can be killing it, going gangbusters, man. People, we're getting rich, but who's we? We is a small number of people. So therefore, you see this kid who grew up in a rich family who kills the CEO of this company. These are like
what's up with that?
pitchforks. Well, what's up is that eventually, the people are going to get the pitchforks and they're going to charge on to the castle and they're going to take out the king. And like that's what it is. The pitchforks are coming, man. Maybe.
Wait, how are you
maybe
seeing
not.
that? How are you seeing that? That
Well, look
like
at
people are coming
so
based off of
he's
like what happened with the
yeah. It's not so this young man was mentally ill, it sounds like. Okay. Well, first off, you almost have to be at some level mentally ill to assassinate somebody like that.
He was like a Ivy League dropout.
I mean, it's what's that?
Was he an Ivy League dropout? Like he went to UPenn or
No,
something?
he graduated. I think
he
he graduated. Yeah.
graduated from UPenn.
He was
Okay.
he was very smart, man, a really smart guy. Engineer. Right. Yeah, I think he graduated. But the point being, the stream will tell us in a hot minute because everybody's following this.
Yeah.
And so, people look at how people have reacted to this, right? I mean, people know the inequality. They know how unjust it is. They know how wrong it is. They don't know what to do about it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
And they don't have control over it. But the average people understand the absolute, complete, and utter injustice of what's happening around.
Mm-hmm. So this student that came from a wealthy background, he was advocating for those that aren't receiving like their rights or aren't getting. They're just in the middle of an unjust system. Like, and because the healthcare system is, I don't know exactly, but it's like greed. They're not.
Yeah. I think he was responding to the greed, but again, he's not. You can't take him at face value because I think he's not like a. He has this manifesto, so to speak. It's not like the Unabomber. The Unabomber had this 50-page manifesto. You know what I mean? This kid had a 250-word manifesto. I mean, they're calling it that, but like, come on, man, right? And so basically, in that sense, he's just operating as Ricard says, like at some level, like a terrorist, right? He's just operating that way. But look how the people responded. Now, some of it, the response is just people being really stupid on social media, right? But the point being, there is a response in that way. And so imagine when we're going back to AI and the system starts to break down in ways and there are fractures in that system where people are losing. We can't keep up with it. We can't reorganize the economy to do all of the things that we need to do to ensure that people are getting a steady income. People are proposing like a standard income for everybody. I mean, we're going to get to a certain place. And you see that with these dystopian world visions of, these novels and things that people propose, and people have a standard income. They don't do anything. They sit around, but they get paid somehow, So we're going to have to do something to figure it out. And then we may not be able to fast enough is my point.
And so like you're saying that this act is just another piece or the beginning of like more unrest, because the more unjust it becomes with AI and technology kind of taking over, more people that are in positions in that little yellow bracket that you showed us, in that little yellow area, are just going to continue to be more and more marginalized.
Here, I'm going to show. I want to do this. Here, again. Here, let me... so here, I'm going to share this again. Let me see if I can... I should be able to do
let's
this.
get it, boss.
Come on, man. I got this. I
Yeah.
understand. Let's go. We're gonna go
It's
a
all you.
window. We're
Yup.
gonna go here,
Oh yeah.
here.
That's right.
All right, here we go.
Boom.
So look at, you think this is 50% of the population right here, right? 2.6% of the wealth. How long do you think you're gonna like get these people to argue with one another about whether Harris or Trump is actually better for them? Than than God knows what, than overthrowing the system at sorts, right? Like,
Right,
how do you think
right.
you're gonna hoodwink these people who got a lot of guns? By the way, they've got a lot of guns. Like, how do you think you're gonna do that before they start saying, "Hang on
Dang,
a second,
I kind of feel like for a while, but what do you think? Because how?
I I don't know." Well, right now we've got them pitted against one another, and then these folks here. This is the other 40%. So again, this is like 90% on down. You got these people mostly fighting with each other about stupid things related to God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile,
What?
look at these folks. Like, just look at this top 0.1%, the top 1%. Look at that. That's the
Right.
man. You can't. Uh, you're not going to be able to keep pulling the wool down over their eyes forever. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
can. I mean, I don't know. We've been saying this forever, that this is what Karl Marx talked about. I mean, if anyone bothers to read Marxism, like, people, all they hear is lawyers, guns, and money. Yeah, Warren Zevon, man. Yeah, this is what Marx is all about. Basically, Marx said this this is the essence of capitalism, that a few really wealthy individuals can restructure the system to benefit themselves. So Marx Marx was not a Marxist. Marx was a social theorist, a social and economic theorist, who was looking at how, and a sociologist, by the way, who was just looking at the ways in which society was organized, and how and why it's organized in the way it is. And he
Mm-hmm.
basically said, yeah, that's what you're going to get, man. You're going to get this. And the people are going to be, of course, lied to, and they're going to believe the lies until somebody comes along and takes the curtain, shows the wizards behind the curtains, right? And of course,
Mm-hmm.
the problem is the people. Then they have their own thing going on, right? So they, like in Syria right now. So these militias just overthrew um, Assad. Great, lovely, good. He was a brutal, and 50 years of the Assad family, man. This is just utter
Oh.
brutality.
Oh,
But
really? Let's say more.
yeah, this is terrible. But look who overthrew them. You know what I mean? Like, come on, this is not where you want to go. Like, it's not,
Mm.
nothing good
When
can
you,
come of that.
yeah.
So
Uh,
so
like when
this
you
is
say
like
look
in
who
this.
overthrew, when you say look who overthrew them, you're like a terrorist group,
Well, these are
or.
not these are militias, right? These are people
Mm-hmm.
who, they understand injustice, so they overthrew. They were They're fighters, right? They're militants, and many of them are Islamic militants, right? But they're not visionaries. They're not thinking about, okay, now we gotta build a democratic society here. That's why,
Right.
last week we talked about the founding of the United States, and I talked all about, like, the farmers and getting people to fight. But the framers of the Constitution here, they were elites, right? And many were slave owners, and many, one thing after another. But man, they had a vision for something, and they got lucky. Really, a lot of luck is involved, but they had a vision and they held to that vision. They weren't, and of course, they had lots of land. They had a lot of new land here, and they were just going to destroy native peoples and take their land and move forward, that kind of thing. But it wasn't like in Syria, where you're trying to, now you got to try to build a society on top of a society that's been destroyed for 50 years, right?
Right.
I mean, we can go to any number of places where we see that. So it's going to be much more
Mm-hmm.
difficult in Syria, but these are not democratists, right? These are not democratic organizers. These are not people who are going to be able to make this thing happen. And so, okay,
Right.
there we go. And so,
Yeah.
what we're going to see is a similar kind of thing.
Or,
When these
quick question.
50% of the population start to see stuff clearly, they're going to just fight. They're not going to fight to build a new world. If they were going to fight to build it, if they're going to try to build a new world, it would be different. But they won't. They won't be able to. And so,
Wow. So you think that they would organize?
Yeah, they would
like if there's
organize in
people
very thoughtful ways. Yeah, yeah. But they
here.
can't. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't. It's not going to work that way. And look, you can't
Oh wait,
even
why
get.
not? Can't. Go ahead.
Well, because there's a natural inclination toward division, and we've built a world in which it's not just the rich have not done it deliberately, but it just has gotten built this way so that
Hmm.
people whether it's television and news and talk shows or now the internet, it's just so easy to people just can go at each other and bring out the worst of the human condition
Mm.
instead of saying, whoa, hang on, Trump people, Harris people, can we sit down a little bit? Can we talk about really building a world that is going to take the bottom 50%? Here, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. Hang on.
Yeah. Let's go.
These people here, a world in which this yellow little section right here at least
Hmm.
goes up to here. Maybe it doesn't
Hmm.
go all the way here, but at least it goes to here somewhere,
Hmm.
right? Man,
Hmm.
at least get that 2.6% to 20%, even
Oh my
12%, even
goodness.
12, it would be okay. But you
Wow.
got to go somewhere. But that's not. That's that. People can't. It's very difficult, right? It's very sad to me to really see that. It's like
Yeah.
Palestine, yeah, chicken pork
Wh-
adobo. It's like Palestinians overthrowing. You can't overthrow Hamas. First off, they don't have the weapons to overthrow Hamas. They would if they could. The vast majority, but of course, you can't really talk to other Palestinians because this is like the Assad regime in Syria, right, or Gaddafi, and you or whoever, or Saddam Hussein. I mean, it's Gaddafi in Libya, Saddam Hussein, wherever. I mean, you can go. Like people are gonna, you can't even talk because you don't know who's gonna rat you out. So
What makes it capable for other minority groups, or like as not racially, ethnically, or just groups that are not that are fighting against the system? Like, what does it take for those groups to like overthrow systems? Because you're saying that like so it happened in Assad. You're saying that it couldn't happen here, like couldn't happen in like Palestine. Do you know what that is that makes it capable for
well,
others? Like what
a
resources they have?
okay. Well, listen, that bottom 50, the group in the yellow,
Hmm.
they have enough weapons to overthrow this system. Yeah.
Really?
Unlike in Syria or unlike in Libya or unlike in a lot of places, these people
Wow.
actually have enough weapons to overthrow the system, and there are enough police and military people who would be on their side. So let's be pretty clear here. But
Really?
sure, oh my God, but they won't, right? And then you got a civil war, and then Mikhail is saying, yeah, it's a civil war. Yep, that's exactly what it would be, and then that's
Mhm.
so you don't
But
want that. I don't want that. Like
right.
shit, they don't want it either. But
Hmm.
but in the right conditions, that's what would happen. So it is as it is. We just keep going forward,
So are like
right? And this
conditions?
guy, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask if are conditions not worse enough, or like do conditions need to be worse for this, or I guess I'm honing on the like it wouldn't happen. I guess I'm wondering what social force or what comfortability are they current in, or is it comfortable
Yeah,
enough? Kind of like how they say like those that are in poverty
yeah.
in America aren't experiencing the poverty that those are experiencing like in other
Probably,
places.
yeah.
But
Probably you need triggering events, man. We need
right,
a massive downturn in the economy. It's sudden. It's a shock, and you just can't. There's nothing we can do.
right.
Uh, yeah, yeah. You
Wow,
need
it feels
that.
chilling to talk about this. It's almost like I'm asking you, what would it take? And I'm like, why am I asking, what would it take? But
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. So look at this. Look at this here. Well, this is interesting, right? Because I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Again, I used to study when I was a PhD student. I studied revolutions, so I was like really.
oh,
But
wow,
here,
wow.
look here. The top 1%, top one, up right here. So it's 30%. over 30% of the wealth, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you this is like the guy who was assassinated, right? He's up here, right?
Right.
And the healthcare United Healthcare CEO, and a lot of these folks, I mean, they're all up here, and so down here, these people are the ones that have the stories of saying like,
Right.
hey, I had insurance. We submitted the insurance for my child to get a basic surgery, or somebody somehow get what she needed to take care of her asthma, and they rejected it. And
Wow.
like, and you can only have so many of those. But now what we're seeing are those stories come out, and now you have a space for them to come out because of what happened to this man, which is not in any way justified, but it's what it is. And
Right.
you start seeing the injustice, but mostly you don't see the injustice up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any ways to understand that injustice. So like,
Oh,
we
like
don't have a way to.
we don't see the injustice, kind of like how like white collar crime in
Mhm.
a way, like it's
Mm,
invisible. It's like
exactly, it's
hidden.
invisible. Yeah, but when when you watch one of these wealth funds emerge, and it doesn't take a lot, and a hedge fund, and in 5 years the hedge fund goes from whatever it is to $5 billion, and
Right.
the people that opened it are they're each worth $1 billion, or whatever the case is. It's like, how is that money came from the people in the yellow? You know what I mean? Like, that is not, I mean, it came from other places, but fundamentally it's people in the yellow that are keeping
Through
the
like
system going.
taxes or
Yeah, not
or
just them. Like, they're working. They're keeping the system going sociologically, right? They're just
right.
spinning. They're making it go. They're going. They're the plumbers and the carpenters and the school teachers and the this and the that, and they're working
Right.
at Home Depot and at Walmart and on, the gas stations and the airplanes, making them fly, and
They're
taking
keeping their
luggage off of the airplanes, and loading luggage onto the airplanes, and it's all that shit. It's all these people, and yet
making the wheel
somehow
go
people.
around.
Yeah, making it go around. And the hedge funds, someone figured out how to do a hedge fund, and it's really brilliant, actually. One day I gave myself several hours of just walking through what these hedge funds are, and I didn't want to talk about it, but I was like, oh damn, why didn't I think of that? And the reason I didn't think about it is because it's not in me. I don't have that. Lori and I realized, like, we don't. I don't even have that gene in me. It's not even a single marker in me to take something. That the moment I have access to money, and the moment I have access to funding and that sort of thing, I immediately look toward where I can share with different people. It's
Right.
not even in me. And sometimes I I talk, Lori and we talk, and I think, God, man, why didn't I even have a single gene just to say get something for myself? But I don't have that. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me. Like, well, what matters to me is I want access to as much money as I can have. I'm always
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways to make money because I want to make it for other people or give it to other people. I need
Yeah.
the money to run these projects in different places, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
never for me. I mean, I don't. Well, I mean, I need to buy a microphone, or I need something. I don't know. You know what I mean? But not very
Yeah.
much.
Right.
So that's why I can't think of something like how to come up with a hedge fund. I just can't even
Mm-hmm.
imagine being that evil. Well, okay, I'm not going to say evil, but there's
Mm.
something about it
Mm-hmm.
that is very
That feels
disturbing.
evil.
It feels it. Yeah, that we have a system that could allow people to do that. And then this is and again, I want, for those of you who watch and listen to this, who are completely like anti-communist, I just want you to understand, this is exactly what Karl Marx said. And if you read Marxism, this is what Marx was talking about. He was talking about the legions of the unemployed and unemployable proletariat, the workers, who just get left behind. And that's all he was. He wasn't a communist. He is not responsible for the Soviet Union or Cuba or God knows what. He's just a brilliant thinker who just critiqued the whole thing. And
And
he
he's
took
like, wow.
that distribution of wealth that you see right there. It's all in the writings, man. And you got to
Wow.
give credit where credit is due. It's
He's
like,
just
yeah.
pointing out the massive inequity that was to
And
come.
inequity is fine. Some inequity is fine. I mean, like, of course, there's going to be inequity. I mean, oh my God. I remember being on a kibbutz in Israel, and going through the kibbutz with, sitting around. There was a gathering of some kind. It was
What's a kibbutz before you?
kibbutz is where these kids. It was a movement, the kibbutzim movement that Jewish people, that Israelis started, and it's like pure. It's like the purest form of communism that you really could imagine. Okay, everything is publicly owned. Everything that's in the kibbutz is built by everybody in the kibbutz. The houses, the school, the work shed, the whatever it is, right? Sometimes people, they can have certain things like maybe their own car or something. There's certain layers, but the original kibbutzim movement, you don't even have that. Everything is shared. Everything is shared.
Wow.
And and Israel really, to a great degree, really built itself. And this is Israeli sort of think, if you really study Israeli thinking and philosophy and political social philosophy, you really see that kibbutzim movement was so important. San Francisco commune. There are so many. There are just so many, right? Okay, so here's the thing. I remember sitting there one night. There was a musical that the community put on this musical, and I was sitting. I went. I mean, obviously, I was in the kibbutz. I mean, I was staying there.
That's cool.
And I said, like, hey, walk me through who the people are, man. Who the ones doing the work, and who are the lazy ones? Who are the freeloaders, right? The free riders. The free riders, meaning like, yeah, you all go to work. Question. I'm gonna stay home, man. I'm gonna stay home and chill, just smoke my corncob pipe or whatever they did. And like,
that's the best question.
Eat my hummus. What
does that mean?
Tabbouleh, eating the hummus, so they just walked around. It's like, okay, well, that one over there, like, he doesn't do this, and that one over there, and it was like all this stuff in the community, man. You cannot get people to be equal. You cannot. People will they will not do it. It doesn't matter. And like, how can you not do it, man? You're all here. This was an Orthodox Jewish kibbutz. You know what I mean? Like, come on, guys. Like, how are you not? How can you be a freeloader? A free rider, they would say. Like, that's what it is, man. So basically, the kibbutz movement is almost entirely broken down, man. Because
really?
Yeah.
That is hilarious. What brought you? That's so funny. Honestly, it is so funny. What brought you to that question?
I don't.
What were you,
why that? Because I think because I'm always thinking about that. Because I always, it's like I think about, my doctoral dissertation was really a lot about free riding. It was about building communities, about the Catholic Church being able to build communities in Ecuador and Latin America. Is the liberation theology based community movement. So I've always been thinking about that. And it's just funny. And because I'm fascinated. I mean, I knew that the kibbutz movement breaks down because you can't get people to do what you want them to do.
So eventually, after a while, like as the norms are establishing like freedom, and as long as you pull your own weight, you're in this together, but eventually people stopped pulling their own weight, and it's like slowly breaks down.
Yeah,
just unless you have a
that one person. You just need one person, man. There are these movements all over, right? I mean, they're all over. So in Scandinavia and Sweden, I mean, Ricard, you have. I mean, there are all these movements around the world. People have toyed with the idea of communism fundamentally, right? This is it. Communism, meaning like communism is simply communalism. Let me call it that. Let me not call it communism, because then people go, oh, communism. It's communalism, where you just like, you live in this commune, man. I mean, I have a friend who started a commune here at Penn, in State College.
Really?
And and
awesome.
and it's just like, in the end, it just, this was 35 years ago, and it just, it just broke down, and everything breaks down, man. You can't get that. You can't get people to do that. I wouldn't do it. I mean, even in places where people are very communal, It's very difficult. It has to be so deep, and it has to be small, and it's really hard to get, and it has to mostly be enforced. Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
was gonna ask. That's what I was like. There has to be some kind of force.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because
it has to be enforced, man, with threats. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
incentive.
Yeah, something because
So it's like
yeah.
social exchange theory like only goes so far. Like
Yeah. Yeah, Ricard. Yeah, I'm hang on, I'm just reading
yeah,
Ricard's
go ahead, go
comment.
ahead.
Yeah. The stock market is not the economy shapes the stock market. The stock market is nothing more than, and the stock market is really largely, it's as much psychological as anything else. I mean, when people evaluate stocks, it's what people who are invested in the process decide whether it's good or bad, and then they evaluate in certain ways. So things go up or they go down, but it's one reflection of how well the economy is doing. But if you go back to these things here, that hang on, I'm gonna do this again.
Yeah, yeah. You pull it up.
Wait, hang on. All right, hang on. Screen, window, screen. There we go, man. There we go. We
You
got
got
it.
it down.
All
Yep.
right, dude. So listen, the economy it's doing quite awesome. Look at what it's done here. Look at how it went up. Look at this, man. This is trillions of dollars. We started at
Oh
20
my.
trillion dollars here, and we're now up to 140. Okay.
Holy crap.
Look at how the yellow hasn't hardly changed at all. As a percentage of, it's like really, it's just like, okay. I mean, it's as a percentage
Wow.
of it, it's shrunk tremendously. There's a greater
Wow.
percentage of the economy that the poorest 50% controlled more wealth here, right? But the economy's killing it, man. You know what I mean? Like, look again.
Wow.
Look at this. Look at this, man. This is crazy, man. This is gangbusters. You can't beat that. Not for
Wow.
these people, though, man. So I think
What?
Ricard, what you're saying, this is the point. It's like the stock market is secondary to actually the economy to a great degree.
Wow.
But yeah.
So how bad was it in 1989? I'm just looking. Like you can't even see it. The
Yeah, well,
yellow.
the issue is, but yeah, well, you can't see it, but it's probably, if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably they control about 6 or 7% of all the
Hmm.
wealth back here. So they've really lost that, comparatively speaking. They've increased the amount of wealth they have.
But the
See how it's bigger here than it was
yeah.
here? You've increased
Uh-huh.
it, but not by much, right?
Oh my
So
goodness.
this is the idea, right? Go tell. Sure, that my plumber makes more money today than my plumber's father did,
Hmm.
30 years ago.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so, okay, awesome. Yeah, my plumber does quite well. For a
Right.
plumber, man, he does quite well. He lives a
Right.
middle class life. Guy's a single guy. He golfs all over the place, and he's always golfing. He's like, yeah, he's doing well. I'm sure he's making six figures,
Yeah.
dude. And he comes. Hey, I pay him well when I come here. One time I paid him. We had a leak in the faucet in the kitchen,
Hmm.
and I didn't even bother to try to fix it, man. Usually I'm pretty handy, so I have a lot of tools, so I can do basic stuff. And
Hmm.
whether it's building things or whatever. I mean, I'm grew up in that working class.
Yeah.
I can build a lot of
You
things.
built a few things in Pond over here.
Dude, I built a lot of that stuff, man. Hung some of those
Yeah.
TVs, the whole thing. Okay,
Heck yeah.
but we had a leak,
They're fresh
and
too.
and the guy he comes over and he's like, I said, yeah, man, I got this leak. It's like he reaches under the faucet and and the thing's hanging down like this, and he goes, okay, there we go, I fixed it. Boop, boop, writes the invoice out, $100, man. Talk about feeling just emasculated. It's just like, oh my god. I'm like, dude, you got it. You just killed me right there. I told him, do not tell Lori about this. Oh my god. It
That
was,
is so funny.
yeah.
Not even a tool, just his two fingers.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. No, no,
There,
no. Hey, M169. No, no, no. It's not. That's not an elitist thing, right? I'm speaking as sociologically, right? I was a house painter. I did really well as a house painter, and this guy, um, my no, it's not elitist in that way at all. So
mm,
I am very much from the working class. I say that for a plumber because people have
well,
the ideas that plumbers don't make money, and I'm
I
always
was
trying
just
to
about,
tell my students, man, what are you doing going to college, studying sociology, for example, or communications, or God knows
hmm
what? It's like
hmm
go, and you don't have money, and you
hmm
come from a family that doesn't have money. I'm like, do a trade, man. There's nothing wrong
hmm
with that. Go do a
hmm
trade. You'll be making so much more money, and you'll be more satisfied if you really, like
hmm
you could be much more satisfied, dude. Being in a, like, doing something with your hands, carpentry or plumbing or electricity or painting or something, right? Sheet metal work, or dude, it's so much more satisfying than sitting behind a desk and pushing papers or taking phone calls because you have a BA in political science and you're working for some political campaign thing and you're making $40,000 a year. And it's like, come on, man, go like build the world,
hmm
Yeah. So,
hmm Yeah, no,
yeah,
I was thinking that
yeah,
same thing. The narrative that surrounds certain jobs, or um,
yeah,
that totally makes
yeah.
sense. Um,
Yeah.
what?
Listen, yeah, green-eyed lady, man. That's the thing. In this community, we don't we do not have enough people in the trades. And so first off, if you want someone to come in and remodel your bathroom or something like that, just good luck, man. You just get, people won't even call you back. Like it's just, and then you just build, and good for them. That's the nature of it. And it's like, well, go sing your kids out and do the trade. I
Mhm.
knew when I came here to State College, I didn't even really bother. Um, when I came back from Ecuador, Lori was living here, and I just didn't pay much attention to sending my resume to Penn State Sociology Department to see if they needed, and they had a class that they needed someone to teach.
You weren't thinking
Well,
about that.
nah, I didn't have to think about it because I was a house painter, and I knew I could make, especially in a college
So
town
you
like
and
this,
you
I
already
knew
had
I
your
could make a lot of
PhD.
money. I was writing my dissertation for my PhD, and I knew that I could make more money painting houses than teaching. Teaching was just a thing that's nice because it keeps my mind going. But I knew, like, man, I can paint. I can make far more money painting, and I love paint. For me, even at the time, it didn't really matter. Man, I painted all the way through school.
Yeah,
For me, it's a very much a Buddhist meditation kind of thing. I get
I
into
get
a
it.
really cool space, and
Yep.
so. Um, but
hmm
in the end, I just happened to stop. We were driving through town, and I said, "Hey, I'll run my resume up to the social department,
hmm
whatever." But I knew I didn't need a job, and in the end, I got a job teaching, and I never did any painting in this town because I never really had to because I was able to live on a very small amount of money. I didn't get paid. I think I
hmm
got paid $3,000 to. Uh, hang on, what? How much was it?
For
Three
teaching?
thousand, 5,000. I think they pay me 3,000 to teach or 4,000 to teach a class. Yeah, can you believe it?
For
It was
for
nothing, man.
for what? Like a semester?
Yeah, just to one class for a semester, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
This was
crazy.
1990, but still. Oh, look, our rent was $200. So between our rent and everything, we just ate rice and beans, so
Yeah,
it
but
was all good.
$3,000 for the semester?
And
That's
for the semester, 4 months, 16 weeks, man. Yeah.
that's
And
crazy.
then the next semester they'd pay me 4,000, I think, or whatever. I got a big raise. So
Big raise.
yeah, yeah. But you can see why I knew I can make more money in a weekend painting,
Yeah.
than the teaching. So
Especially with the student housing here, and just
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
relationships.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know,
And I
Sam,
and
if
I
you want to start
and I
something.
didn't. Yeah, and I didn't. I didn't mind that. I mean, I always had that. And so all the way through, even, Lori and I, because, we didn't have tenure, right? So our jobs
Hmm.
were quite insecure. And that they weren't really insecure. I mean, because we didn't see them as insecure, but they were at any moment. Penn State could still just let me go in a heartbeat.
Right.
Um, but that didn't matter because I'm like, well, I'll just paint houses, and I got
Right.
that, and do other work. Not plumbing because like plumbing's too difficult, man. Electrical work also. This is a real high level. But Lori's brothers are both electrical contractors.
Hmm.
So her father was an
It,
electrician. So I
yeah.
know that's too difficult, man. They've shown me a lot of stuff. So like,
It's it,
yeah,
yeah, it's really interesting how some things are viewed as more sophisticated than others. Like for like we Penn
yeah,
State has an architecture major, and architecture is kind of in that like similar. Obviously, it's a little different, but it's like a similar realm as like a trade, right? And it's like
yeah.
that's the only one that requires a bachelor's, but then plumbers and electricians, and they're like kind of thrown to the side as those are the blue collar job nobody wants to do. They're not good enough. They're
Yeah.
great jobs that we
Well,
need
the issue
consistently.
is we've built a world in which we look down on the trades, right? So this is like the
Did,
college
did that transition
university.
at some point? Like it wasn't always viewed that way, as soon as
No, no, I
or
think
was.
it happened when universities expanded tremendously in the
Right.
1960s was when,
Uh-huh.
50s and 60s and then 70s. This is when like things were in the emergence of community college in the 60s and 70s and like
Do you?
everybody was. So it was a community college was for people who might be in the trades, but then they would take college classes at night. It's like, well, why take
Mm,
college classes at night? To
yeah.
improve your what? Right? And
And
so this was the idea. We just started to build in this ideology of the educated, to go to university and be a smarter, better human being, right?
mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I was in the working class. I didn't have any. I never bought that. I never bought that Kool Aid at all. So or drank that
Yeah.
Kool Aid. It was never part of my reality. But that's when
Yeah.
it happened, and then so but both Lori's brothers went to college. They both went to
So,
Rutgers,
mm-hmm.
and it helps them, right? Because they're both, even though they're both electricians. I mean, uh, they didn't, they neither of them works in the area. One did agricultural economics, and the other
Mm-hmm.
one, I forget what he did, but yeah, but it helps them because it opens their mind for sure, and going to
Mm-hmm.
university does that. It really opens
Mm-hmm.
your mind, but
How come you
you
weren't
open your
bought
mind
in?
without it.
Because my dad, my dad has a ninth grade education. Got his GED like while he was inside of a prison cell. Like that's how he got his GED, and like built a business from like the ground up. And but when he started to get clients that were educated that he would train, um, I didn't even think about going to college. Like it was like in
Yeah,
my view because of my dad, but I didn't really I just didn't understand really, and he was just like, yeah, you're going to college,
yeah.
this thing, and but you weren't bought into it, and so it's like, what? How come you weren't bought in? And
Well, huh?
are
Yeah.
people telling you
Let me
not
answer
to?
that. Yeah, let me answer that, but I want to respond to AZ about government public school
Oh yeah.
encourage students to take
Hmm.
government-backed student loans. Yeah, that was another part of it, man. Like the government expanded the student loan program, built up universities, built up seats in colleges, and then you had to ensure the students would take those seats, right? And then you have all these spaces, so you gotta force people to get people to go, and so then we just load them up with debt. That's one way to do it. Of course, when I was in college, you weren't loaded up with debt, not like today. I don't know. I think I bought into it. Well, I didn't buy into it till my third year of college, and even then, and what happened was I just got tired of not understanding the world, and
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't
Hmm.
when I was painting and playing music, and I was driving a forklift, in a lumber yard, doing all sorts of other things, some landscaping stuff.
Yep.
I didn't. I just didn't have time to really understand the world. And then I just decided one day I just wanted to try to understand it. And the only way I was going to do that would be to dedicate 100% of my time to that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so reading the New York Times every day, or a really good newspaper. It didn't have to be the New York Times. I was reading the Christian Science Monitor for a long time. That was a really good newspaper. And
Christian
the
Science.
Times, and just that kind of thing. Just keep reading it, and I'd read stories that I didn't know anything about. You know, something going on in Indonesia, and I'd be like, "Ah, what's this about?" And I'm reading it. I don't know a damn thing about Indonesia, but like gradually, like then the next day there'd always be another story, right? And then it'd say like, "Oh, okay, hang on," and then suddenly it's I over the years, over time, I was making all these connections, and like,
Mm.
oh, and then it just happened, and then I just became really fascinated by.
Mm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
that's how I bought in, just because I wanted to give it a shot. Now I wasn't certain that I was going to do that. That I was going to give it one quarter, going to give it 10 weeks and see 100% of my time, see what came of it. And at the end of 10 weeks, I felt like I cracked open some doors, you know. I
Mm.
opened up doors, I looked outside, and I was like, "Oh, hey, that's like I think I understand that a little better." Okay, so then, that was happening. And so then that's how I ended up. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My question I had, it was, did you have the same relationship with the compassion for those that were um, underprivileged, like in the U.S., the same way that you started to experience this like love and compassion for those in other areas, like in the world? You're like, oh, I can't believe all these. I remember you telling me and like saying now, like, oh man, I can't believe all of this is happening, and I didn't even know it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And it just for a second was like, oh man. But pre-Sam, pre-education Sam, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I
Yeah.
wonder what
Yeah. Yeah.
his relationship with those in his direct world, since he wasn't yet exposed to. And I'm making this question about you. It doesn't have to be. I know there's so many
No,
other
no, no.
places we
That's
could
actually
go.
a really good question. Well,
Um,
listen, number one, I was not far away from those people, right? Like I
right, yeah.
remember, like my sister lived on a farm in Kentucky, and she didn't have running water, right? We'd have to go out to the well and get water, and we'd have to, she didn't have heat. I mean, it was crazy,
Wow.
man. Coal, we had coal delivered, and like, that's how it
Oh,
got the
wow.
heat and, all that stuff, right? They went an outhouse. I remember going and, man, talk about, you go out to the outhouse in a really, really cold March
Oof.
morning or something, man. And first off, you're looking for all the spiders and like, and then that's pretty cold, man. Taking a dump in the
Yeah.
outhouse, it's like so. And
That's
that,
not
but
my
the
vibe.
neighbors, nah, dude,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
big. But,
yeah.
but you know, but the issue is that uh, there was there were these kids across the street, man. They didn't have shoes, right? They ran around without shoes. I mean, they didn't even. Yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy. Across the street, it
Yeah.
wasn't a street; it was a road. And
Hmm.
anyway, and even in
So
my own world, I mean, my needs were taken care of, but I lived right on the edge of a very, very poor area.
yeah.
Mine was
Uh-huh.
working class, but we had
Yeah.
individual houses, and for to the
Yeah.
best of my knowledge, I don't ever remember seeing a foreclosure sign on anybody's house anywhere. That kind of stuff wasn't happening in the
Mm.
'70s, '60s and '70s, but not where I was anyway. So, so,
Yeah.
but so I was aware of, but I wasn't aware of like the most troubling of the troubles. But
Hmm.
so when I started reading about the world, the less developed world, it was like that was some serious stuff, man. Just
Yeah.
right now, if you really want to know conflict, start right now reading about what's going on in South Sudan, the
Okay.
genocide and like go dig into that conflict there
Bet.
for a hot minute, man.
Okay.
It makes what we're dealing with in the United States. This is nothing. Yeah, people are at each
Yeah.
other's throat on social media, but fuck, who cares?
Writing that down.
Go study what's going on in South Sudan. So,
Yeah.
and what we're
It's.
gonna see in Syria,
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, hang on, Axel. Hey, let me just respond.
Yeah, yeah.
Axel, yeah. I'm following South Korea definitely very closely. Connecting with my friends. It's getting more and more problematic, and the politics, the political divisions in South Korea are really intense, uh, really serious. There are two fundamental parties there. They're at each other's throats in the way that the Democrats and Republicans are here. But there's also a couple other smaller parties that we don't have in the United States. But so it's similar. France, Germany. There are these kind of couple main parties, and it's unfortunate, man. They just keep digging in, and they need this guy. And unfortunately, the parties run the system in South Korea. So otherwise, this guy would just be Yoon. They would have just kicked him out. But his party, they don't want to go against him, and they also know what happened last time they did that. They booted out. They went along with booting out a president, and impeaching a president and kicking him out. And then the other party won the next election. So they're also very careful about that. So unfortunately, parties run the show, and nobody can. All they need are about 8 people in that People's Power Party. That's the president's party. To say like, no, this guy's got to go. They need 8. I think it's 8 people, but they're not going to get him probably because people don't want to go against the party. That's the thing. That's where party politics is such a troubling thing, man. And
8 people in the party don't want to go against the party.
yeah,
See?
yeah.
Okay.
Nah, because the party's where you get your money, man. You want to get reelected, you need the party. If the party decides to scapegoat you and alienate you, you're toast. You're not going to get. We will not get reelected. You need that party for everything. And so here in the United States, there are certain places where you could go against your party and you'll be okay because the people you have enough clout among your people at home, in your district, that they're going to vote for you anyway. But the party's going to run somebody else against you and boot you out because you're not, and try to boot you out, because you're not a party player. And they're going to alienate you, so you're not going to be involved in any decision making. I mean, this is what happens. Parties are everything in a party system. Parties are everything. They hold the power. Yeah. So
That's unfortunate. Oh man.
yeah. Well, that's what it is, right? Like you want to. I mean, that's kind of the nature of how things operate, in in the in the in the world. It's like sports teams. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I understand it sociologically, but it's really, it's quite
Man.
yeah.
Man, groups are so interesting. Yeah, because you can't be authentic unless that's authentic to you.
No, you can't. And so, and now, what you're going to see in Syria. So Axel, I think I'm just kind of watching the chat a little bit. I was talking about Syria a little bit earlier, and some of the
Mhm.
yeah, it's dreadful, man. You're seeing these images coming up. It's how brutal this the Assad regime was, and Assad's father, and how brutal, man, absolutely brutal, and the amount of money that they stole. I saw something. I don't know what the number is. I don't think they have any idea. Well, they don't have any idea
Who do
because
they
they
steal
can't
from?
know. They stole from the treasury. But I saw a number today, like $120 billion or something, man, that they sent over to Russia. I don't think you can go by that because, even though I saw it in the Washington Post, but I think it was. But you can't. It's too early to be able to say like, oh, they took $120 billion out of Syria and sent it to Russia. It's like I don't buy that. I mean, hang on. They took a lot for sure. Like nobody is, they all of these folks, man, like that. So it's
Mm.
just, but
So,
it's I don't
and
know.
this Assad, like, what's happening is in Assad is connected to what's happening in Syria,
No,
or
Assad is
Or the
the
Sudanese.
former
This.
dictator of Syria, and his father was in power before him. So there's 50 years between them, and brutal, quite brutal actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's really the stories are, but the stories have been going on. Look, what happens is now it rises to the level of news, so people are watching. They're saying like, "Oh, look at this and look at that." But it's been 50 years of this. Well, his father wasn't that brutal, so uh, as brutal, but it's been
So his son
okay,
was more brutal.
decades. Yeah, yeah, and so it's it's what goes on, right? But
Yeah.
this is what happened with me, right? When I was young and I woke up to this kind of stuff, right? I'm like, damn, why didn't anybody ever tell me there was this brutal regime in this country called Syria, right? I used to eat at a Syrian restaurant, so like I knew Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't anyone ever tell me that? Well, I never bothered to look, right? And so what happens a lot is these stories emerge and then they become news and people pay attention for the first time. But it goes on. It's been going on, and then you got to look and say, oh wait, hang on, what role did the United States play? Okay, so right now it's not the U.S. It's been the Russians and the Iranians and so on, right? But like, hang on,
Mm-hmm.
when was the U.S. involved here, right?
Mm-hmm.
When were we secretly funneling cash and weapons to Syria, right? And or were we? And if so, when and how? And like this. So that's always me. I'm always going to the next level. Like, what's my role in all of this?
Yeah.
And you
And
generally find that it's pretty. There's a lot of fingers pointing in a lot of directions. Yeah.
and where were the weapons going to? Like who was Syria fighting?
Well, in the past for the past decade, the Assad regime's just been fighting the insurgency, which is the insurgency. The people that finally rose up to say like, hey, we got to kick this guy out of power.
God.
And once again, it was a single issue there. I forget what it was. One person that they, I think it was one person that just was.
What's
Well,
the
in
S?
Syria, part of what happened was all of these refugees were coming into the major cities because of climate change and the droughts that were just unprecedented, and they were pretty certain that they were caused uh, by changing climate. And so, you
Mm-hmm.
see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was
and then it's a moment, right? Boom, the moment, and then like the whole all Arab Spring. I think it started with the one pushcart person in I think Tunisia. I think it was started the whole thing, man. Just like us cascading down.
wow.
They were trying to confiscate this guy's pushcart because he wasn't licensed. He hadn't paid him a fine, and he refused to pay them a fine.
What's a
The
push
police
card?
pushcart, like he was selling mangoes or fruit or something. So he had this cart pushing to the street. This
Mm.
guy. That's all he did, man. That was his cart. And the police were demanding this big fine from him. They were bribing him. So and he just finally said, "That's it, man." And he responded, and they confiscated his cart, and then he went and I think he doused himself in gasoline and lit himself on fire, and that was the spark. No, no pun intended. I mean, that was the spark. That was the thing
Right.
that just started everything there, and then it just started spilling over into other countries, and then ultimately we have the Arab Spring, and it also spilled over into Syria,
Wait, and
and
the
then
Arab Spring is
the Arab
these
Spring is
the
when we just saw all of
insurgents?
these one after another, these countries, these dictatorships that were challenged by people from the bottom. So it just goes back to this. Wait, hang on. Right, hang on. I'm going to show you. We're going to go here,
Yeah, let's go.
go here.
Yep.
Here we
We
go.
need a drum roll every time you do this.
There we go, right here. Just when someday these people down here, this bottom 50% of the population that controls 2.5% of the wealth in the US,
Mm-hmm.
they start saying like, hang on, man, we can't take this anymore. And they just say, no more. And they rise up. And that, when it gets so unequal, it's, eventually it happens.
When you were saying the United States needs like these events to really push people to do um, these types of these types of acts, like to go for like, to fight for
Mhm.
justice, are
Mhm.
you saying like in Syria, it's gotten to that point? It's gotten to
No,
the
well, in
point now
Syria,
where
it happened already, and then they've been fighting the Assad government for over a decade.
right,
And
but
what happened recently is they finally just won. right? They kicked him out. And
Right.
and it's not that the United States needs it. It's that in order for a population of people who are, again, just at least in the United States, the poorest 50% of Americans, the poorest half of Americans control 2.5% of the wealth. Okay. At some point in time, everyone's fine. You go along, you just deal with it, right? And people get enough and they do well enough and they survive. But at some point in time, there's an unjust quality of that. And so sometimes there's something, a trigger moment, a spark moment that just booms, makes things happen. And it's always going to be some kind of spark moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And
So
we've seen
when you're saying, Eric, what you're saying is what would happen if the snowflakes and the MAGAs interbreed. Yeah, man, they're all on the same team, really. Most are on the same team. They just and most absolutely on this. Yeah, but I don't advocate for civil. I'm not advocating for civil war, man. I keep saying, as I said in class few weeks back, I'm at the age I want tranquility, man. I want stability, man. I want to go right out into the sunset.
Soft landing.
Yeah, man. I want to retire. I want to play golf. I want to, whatever. I'll start playing pickleball, because I guess that's what you have to do when you retire in the U.S. I don't know if anyone else is playing pickleball. Over the Europeans, are they playing pickleball over there? Otto Frank,
playing
are you playing pickleball in the Netherlands? But so shit. I don't want that. But at the same time, it's only a matter of time, man. Yeah.
Let's run some fives. You play basketball at the IM? Let's go.
Dude, running back and forth at the IM could be tough, man. I'm golfing. I'm just gonna golf.
We'll get you there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I got that. Yeah. No, I used to play b-ball, join some pickup games at Rec Hall.
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah, back in the 90s. Yeah,
that's dope.
So, but
shot?
the young, I have an okay shot. But it just gets. Then the youngsters like you come along, you take it way too serious.
How do you know that?
Some of the other professors take it too seriously. And then I'm like, dude, you need to relax, man. Doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's kind of like golf. You take golf too seriously, you're going to be one unhappy person. And shit.
Pedro and I were just having this conversation because we were playing pickup ball, and there was this one dude that was getting really serious and kind of like talking trash to Pedro, and Pedro, Pedro's very laid back, and so he's talking to me yo, man, I don't know why this guy is acting like this, it's just a game, and but me on the other hand, I'm I'll lock in.
Yeah, no, I've never been like that. It's too much. It's too much. Once in a while, though. All right, listen, man, we're down. We're at 16:32. It's been a good conversation. It's good. Once again, we landed on some topics that I didn't anticipate landing on, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of. I was in. It was a lot.
Tomorrow's our last day, man. Tomorrow's the last day of class for the semester, and then we'll do some more. I'm going to do a bunch of office hours, I think, over the break because Lori and you are going to be here for until I think right after. Maybe we're going to leave around the 26th, 27th. And
okay, where are you going?
I don't know. We're thinking about headed down to Florida. Yeah, but I don't know. We're going to wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me know about the office hours if you want me to join.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you more of a notice too than 5 minutes. All right.
What? No, I expected to be here.
Oh, you were planning? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, man.
For sure.
Okay, listen, everybody. Thanks. Rock and roll. We're gonna fix up the fix up my camera, man. I got to figure out what's going on. Why it's like
Yeah.
screwing up like that.
You still look
All right.
fresh.
Yeah, we'll get Jeff on it. Okay, y'all. I'll be in class tomorrow. We got like a 35-minute class, 40-minute class, and then we'll rock on. Thanks, everybody. All right. Thanks, Elijah. We'll talk.
All right, Sam.
All right, man. All right, ciao.
All right, boss.